And in truth, we're not separate. We're all truly connected. And once you learn how things are connected, you can start aligning yourself with the path. And the path is the way that you get to where you see yourself.
Welcome to the Elevate Your Brand podcast, where we help online coaches learn how to elevate their brand, become the experts in their industries so they can bring in more clients and create a life they want. I am your host, Chris Anderson. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. All right, welcome back to another recording of Elevate Your Brand. I am Chris Anderson, your host, and today we have a different topic. We like to help budding entrepreneurs elevate what they're doing in business to get more results, help more people, and build that life they love. But today's topic kind of goes back to the individual themselves and how they can improve their daily lives that then will have a positive effect on their business and those that they help. So we're going to be diving into something I know nothing about, chakra and energy and spiritual vibration a little bit, but nothing crazy. So I'm excited to dive into it just to hear more about it from the perspective of our guest and just ask questions and learn right along with you all. So today we have Dexter Morton on the show, and he's the CEO of Chakra Wonders. And his goal basically with that is to spread as much peace, joy, and love to as many people as possible. He believes that working together, we can raise the spiritual vibration and collective consciousness of our society and our planet. We're excited to have him on here and just pick his brain a little bit. Dexter, welcome to Elevate Your Brand.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And that's exactly right. The whole idea is to help people raise their own energetic vibrations in order to help the whole world and the collective consciousness to come to a better place spiritually and energetically. And
so I'd love to start. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but to start, what got you into like this arena, this field, this knowledge-based topic? Like what directed you here?
Oh, very interesting. So I actually, when I was younger, I was really depressed. I was very angry, antisocial. I was an introvert. I'm still an introvert in many ways, but slowly I'm interested in science. So my background is actually as a scientist. Okay. I've always been very interested in just energy and the way that the brain works and the way the mind works and everything. So when I got really down and depressed, one day my dad was like, "Why don't you try meditating?" Meditating. And I'm just like, okay, I've heard of this, but what do you really do with that? What does that really mean? So I started meditating and didn't know what I was doing at all. My father gave me a couple of books to read. He was always giving me books, always feeding my mind. And he was like, "Here, check this book out." And the first book he gave me on the topic was Eastern Body, Western Mind. And it just opened my eyes up to a whole new field that I didn't even know existed. And it's something that you hear about on like anime and cartoons, and you hear about chakras and people are always meditating. Yeah. What does that even mean? And slowly I got into it. As I got older, I left it behind and started delving more into science. And I had this massive mental breakdown several years ago. And for whatever reason, I picked it back up. I remember what my dad said. And he was just like, I called him, I talked to him about it. And he was like, "Yeah, have you been meditating?" And slowly but surely, I got more deeply involved just into the field. And a couple of years ago, I decided to just leave my scientific pursuits. I won't say completely alone or behind, but I decided not to pursue a PhD and decided to be an entrepreneur and find a way to spread this knowledge that got me out of depression, got me off of antidepressants, got me off of, I used to be on Xanax and I had high blood pressure. I don't do any of those things anymore. And I was able to get there through raising my own vibration, eating right, being healthy, and learning about spirituality.
Wow, that's really cool. And I've researched a little bit into like the meditative breathing and vibrational things. Bob Proctor was a big person I listened to, and he would always talk about frequency and vibration. And I never looked into it enough to understand it fully, but I grasped the understanding enough. I think for me, it's, my big faith is God and everything. And I still think that the connection for me there is to be to set space aside where I can just kind of listen and have that silence where I can listen to what he's saying or just what my body's even telling me to change my mental direction, especially when things get overwhelming. And so for those who might not know at all anything, what are chakras to start there? And we can get into what is like spiritual vibration as well.
For sure. So the word chakra is actually a older Sanskrit word. Okay. And what it means is wheel, and it's referring to a wheel of energy within the body. So there are several main chakras inside the body, starting from the root, working its way all the way up to the crown. And the root is located at the base of your spine.
Okay.
The idea is that each chakra deals with a different vibrational energy related to emotions and colors, sound, and things like that. So I'm sure you probably heard of like sound meditation or and things like that. So what happens is that people are actually going through and unblocking these particular energy centers. And the reason that they get blocked up is just that throughout life, as we go through our journeys, we encounter different trials and tribulations that slowly just start to block us. If you notice that as children, we're all super happy and energetic and whimsical. And slowly as you get older, it seems like that starts to die off. And why is that? And it's just life circumstances.
That's a good point. And it's so crazy because it's hard to wrap your mind around some of it, obviously, because you can't necessarily see. But I'm sure there are like scientific evidence even for it that you found being a scientific background for those, right? Or am I off on that?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I actually do like to talk about is the scientific side of this.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning about it. And I'm no like quantum physicist by any means. But we know that all things in the universe are created from energy.
Yeah.
Everything, all forms of matter is energy. The only difference between one thing that we would consider physical versus another physical thing is the denseness of that energy at a centralized location given a particular time.
Okay.
So if you look at it from that perspective, basically, if you could zoom in far enough on literally anything, they're going to look exactly the same. It's all just energy there. It's just like literally the smallest parts of an atom.
Right.
You have these clouds of energy that circulate around a ball of actual light. We're made of that light. So we're all literally made of the same thing. So when we talk about energy, that's essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about getting more connected to that inner light that's within. So that's more of the scientific side of it. And when we start talking about measuring the energy, this is where the science, I would say, hasn't necessarily caught up with yet, because we haven't really gotten to where we can empirically measure this data. Okay. Now, with that being said, we do talk about different electromagnetic frequencies, right? And we do know when we look at the electromagnetic spectrum, all of us as humans, all things in existence give off some type of pulse, right? Some type of energetic wave, energetic frequency. Uh-huh. We just don't have the, let's say, the mechanics to really pick up such subtle energies, right? Mm-hmm. We also don't have the real mechanics to pick up gravity, but we know gravity is there. We can actually calculate that. We know that gravity is essentially, I think it's 9.81 meters per second squared.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right on that one.
We know that it's there, and we also know that it's an energy, it's a force. How do you measure that? You have to measure it against something, and it's difficult to measure the frequency of a human being if we don't really have anything else that we're ready to measure that against.
It really is interesting to me, because I think there's so much we don't know about the world and the body and how everything was created. And it's true, energy is neither created or destroyed. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, just transfer from one form to another.
Yeah. So if that's the law and that's true, and that's so like energy, like our energy, where's it go? So it's a fascinating thing. It's okay. So all this being said, there's ways that you can change that kind of vibration, that energy you put off, correct? That's where they're going with unblocking the chakras?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
So there are ways that you can adjust your own frequency. Now, the basic way that everybody knows, and you're told this throughout life, eat healthy, exercise, have positive thoughts, all that fun stuff. The reality of it is, once you get out of whack with the one area of life, the rest of it is soon to follow. And it usually starts with emotions, right? So once your emotions get out of whack, even if you were constantly exercising, you start not exercising as much. And when you're not exercising as frequently, you start having an unhealthy diet. And slowly you start going upon this slippery slope.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Right.
So with that, okay, I'm guessing you're going to get there and how to unblock that and how to change that. I stepped in there on you.
That's okay. Yeah, for sure. So the ways that you can go through and unblock that is doing things such as, meditation helps you to quiet the mind. Okay. And in quieting the mind, you're able to focus on the thoughts that are on constant repeat. Thoughts that we have run through our head every day, about 80 to 90% of that is the exact same thing over and over again. So the idea of meditation isn't to stop it all. It's to actually focus on the thoughts that are on repeat and then ask yourself why those are on repeat. And slowly you can start breaking down those. And that's just one aspect of raising your vibration, also eating healthy foods and things like that. But when you start getting into more of the physical things such as Reiki, there are healers that are out there who are able to literally lay their hands on people and heal other individuals. One thing that I find fascinating about it, and this is like a side topic, but I find fascinating when people are like, that's not true. There's no way that you can do this. And I'm like, do you believe in God? Do you have faith or anything like that? When you're reading the Bible, there are countless experiences, countless tales of individuals walking, and I'm not talking about just Jesus, people walking, and not just his followers, either or his disciples. Yeah. People walk up and just through faith, through prayer, they would lay hands on someone. They literally just called laying hands, and they would heal another individual.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. All we did was change that word and call it Reiki. And when you're talking earlier about sitting and giving yourself space and being with God, that's all meditation is. Meditation is just prayer for self. And you're just sitting down and connecting. And there are just so many different ways that you can do this. One thing that Chakra Wonders is aiming to do is helping people find that space. Eventually, we want to be able to provide a space that has different natural and holistic practices, therapies, modalities that everybody can go to help them heal. But I also want to be able to reach individuals who might not be spiritual, who might not be religious. And how do you reach those people? And that's one of the other things that I'm also working on.
That's awesome. And I think it is true. Like a lot of time we just let our mind get so jumbled up with things, and then it hinders the rest of our life, even especially if you're building business. So being able to take those moments and clear the mind and figure out what's actually going on up there, what's actually being told to your mind, and figuring out why, okay, where is that coming from, to be able to move and grow and elevate. I think that's a huge part. And I feel like meditation got such a bad rap for, people not really understanding what it truly is and what it can do and help you. Like, even from my perspective and where I come from, I think prayer, quiet time that you always hear about in the church, that's a form of meditation, in my opinion, because you're quieting, you're getting away from everything, and you're listening. You should be listening, at least. So yeah, I think it's an important thing. And I think it's done by a lot of people, and they just use a different word for it at the end of the day.
For sure. I think that a lot of times people get caught up in terminology, and I'm like, just because you're calling it something such as like shadow work is something that's thrown around a lot in the spiritual community. But then when you cross over into psychology, they call it inner child work. So it's literally the exact same thing. We're just using different words.
Yeah.
Not one of those individuals who will sit here and tell you that you take all these herbs and I'll guarantee you that this is what's going to help you and that you're going to change this and attract all this money into your life. But no, that's not how it works. I think that's where a lot of the misconception comes into play. You do have a lot of people out there who are trying to sell these miracle concoctions or miracle cures and stuff like that. But there's little truth to it. Yes, like it is true that drinking things such as green tea is going to help clean your system. It's going to help clean your body. Is that a cure-all? No. But at the same time, when you're doing this every day, green tea is going to be better for you than drinking a glass of coffee every day.
Mm.
That most people don't drink black coffee anyway.
So, I do. I started with a bunch of creamer and honey, but now I do black. Yeah, but I get what you're saying. For sure.
I love black coffee.
Yeah, I know.
You can taste it a little bit better.
People put so much other thing. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, because they put so much other stuff in it. So tea is a better option. But yeah, I get what you're saying there, and it makes sense. And so with that, I guess if people are trying to get started in this, what are some tips you would suggest them do to even just try to meditate there? And then I'd love to dive in a little bit more into the chakra stuff. But how would you suggest people get started in meditation?
For sure. One way that I tell people to get started is literally like anything else, just do it.
Yeah.
And don't have such high expectations for yourself saying that I'm going to sit here for 30 minutes in complete silence. Don't do that. Just give yourself that space to sit by yourself with your thoughts. And it's okay if your mind keeps racing. It's okay if you're not even focused on sitting and being in the moment, because we have to start. So literally start with that. But the other thing that I like to recommend to people before, or I would say in tandem with meditation, is ask yourself some key questions about just, am I happy? And if the first answer to that isn't immediately yes, just continue asking yourself, why not? And go down the list to see where your unhappiness started. And one of the things that I have on my site is it's a shadow work book, which is just inner child questions. And it asks you these type of questions about, when did I first realize the way that I respond to this particular situation is how I respond to it? At what point did I start not expressing myself to the fullest? Because when we're children, we're expressing ourselves.
Yeah.
When was the first time that I can remember this happening? How did my parents interact with each other? And how does that reflect in my relationship with the people that I deal with today? How do I deal with love? And does that represent the same way that my parents or the adults in my life at the time dealt with love? And these things that helped us start putting together little pieces of the puzzle to help start slowing your mind down a little bit and give you something to focus on during the meditation. And one thing that I think is very interesting is when you're meditating, you actually do ask God or whomsoever, your higher power, your source that you're talking to. When you ask a question, you typically get an answer, and that's strange. Sometimes it might not be a verbal, we're not actually hearing things, right? But sometimes you hear an answer in your head, or the way that the world and universe works are through synchronicities. So sometimes you might ask a question, and then later on that day or that week, your question is answered. And it's just fascinating the way that it works. But the issue that most people have is they just don't have the questions to ask in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, is just starting. Just like in a business, just start, just post the post, just start the podcast, just get it out there, and you can improve as you go. And I think the same with meditation, because I can definitely not sit for 30 minutes in silence. I can't, I'm not there yet. I still struggle with 5 minutes because my mind is always going, but I still try. Like last night is a great example. I was sitting there like in bed before I was trying to go to sleep, and I had a 15-minute timer set, and I looked down and there's still like 11 minutes, and my mind had been like all over the place. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I wrote some stuff down. But yeah, like just start, I think, is a huge piece, and then improve, get resources like Dexter mentioned, the book about with the questions to work on your inner child, because that
I'm the same way about like meditating. I don't want to pretend like I sit here and meditate for hours every day. That's definitely not the case. I still work a 9-to-5 job while I run my business. And I still have my family and my life and everything. So I take time for myself when I can. Every now and again, more often than not, I do find time to go meditate, but it's not always 30 minutes. It might be 5. It might be I just had time to sit down for a second.
Yeah, I think better, some is better than none. And so I think that's a big thing to people to realize, that you don't have to give 30 minutes, an hour just to make this work and be beneficial. Even just a second, just to recenter your mind and figure out why maybe it's because you're stressed. Okay, why am I stressed? What can I do going forward? Okay, boom. Just use that time. And I know earlier you mentioned the chakras, the different positions, right? Or locations in the body. So I'm interested on those a little bit more. Like, how are those used to clear, or how do you clear things, the chakras, if I'm using the correct terminology? How do you clear the chakras to improve your health and life, if that's what you do?
For sure, yeah. So with chakras and clearing them, quote unquote, so it's less about clearing and it's more about being within balance. So
Okay.
all things in life should be within balance. So your chakras can be depleted, which a lot of people have depleted chakras, but they can also be overcharged, hypercharged, which is just as so you want to come into balance. So starting with the first chakra, which is the root chakra, located at the base of the spine, represented by the color red. Fun fact, each chakra is represented by a different color in the rainbow, and it's in the same order. So it's Roy G.
From
Biv.
the rainbow.
From the rainbow. Yeah, so
In the
each
same
rainbow,
order.
yeah, in the same order. So the rainbow, the reason the rainbow is because each color is a different frequency. That frequency is the same or relative frequency to that represented chakra. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? It's starting from red, ending with violet. You start from the root, ended up to the crown. So that's an easy way to remember it.
Who created that, or who made the chakra? Do you know how that came about and how they called it?
No. And as I was looking it up, I would say it was like Brahma or one of the Hindi gods who passed it on to a monk or someone that was meditating somewhere. You know how the ancient legend stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's interesting. Just because from the Bible and the rainbow and you know how that was after the flood and stuff. And
yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. I'll let you continue. That's just a really interesting connection.
I find all the connections. One thing that I actually grew up Christian. So one thing that I find fascinating is when I was going through that dark night when I was younger, I started getting really into theology and I started looking at different religions. And one thing that I noticed is that everybody talks about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And they're just using different words to talk about it. Ultimately, they're talking about the same thing. Granted, when you read the different texts from each, slightly different.
Right. They have some of the same stories is what I've
right. The stories are very similar. The message is all the same. It's all about love, peace, helping everybody. Anyway, so back to the chakras. So starting, like I said, with the root chakra. The root chakra it deals with fear and safety. So if you notice that you're very afraid, and it doesn't have to be outright fear, because a lot of times when you come to someone and say, well, what are you afraid of? The instant response is, I'm afraid of nothing. You're probably afraid of something. You might not just recognize it as fear. And if you're afraid of something, it's typically because you feel unsafe or uncertain about that particular situation or whatever is going on there. So one way to clear that is through grounding and going outside and being in the earth and connecting with the energies of nature. If you notice, every time you're outside and you go walking through the park, you instantly just feel better.
It's my go-to. I love it. I walk out barefoot. I got some wood. Like, yeah, man, that ride on, I can attest to that. I love it. That's my go-to stress reliever.
It clears your mind like none other, and it's pretty insane the way that it works. And what that is, you're literally displacing a lot of that unwanted or unneeded energy into the earth while absorbing some of the natural energies of the earth.
Because the earth has its own energy, its own frequency. Right, so when you're out there, okay. I've learned a little bit of that. I did look into that a little. Okay, I like that. So you would suggest go sit.
I would suggest go sit. Honestly, go sit under a tree somewhere.
Yeah.
And the bigger the tree, the better the tree.
It's great. It really is, because I do that. We have some big trees in our property, and like I'll just go walk by them. At least I might not sit by them, but I have before. It's like there's something about it. I can't explain it. There's just something about it. It's like for me at least, there's like a peace with it, especially on like a nice warm day or a cool day. Like just I don't know, it's just something. Yeah. So I agree with that one. That's good.
Yeah, actually, that's like the nail on the head, or where the saying is. Sitting at the base of a tree is actually supposed to teach you stillness, because the nature of a tree is to just be. It's just there. But honestly, if a tree could talk, and the older the tree, can you imagine the things that the tree has seen and what it's experienced? So I
think about that all the time. If I'm out in the forest, like down at we have property in southern Indiana, and walking through the woods, I look at these big tree trunks and I'm like, my goodness, these trees, hundreds of years old. Like I love history. So I'm like, what Indians or like what Civil War troop, because there was some in the area, walk through here? What did they see? Like it would be fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, I think about that as well because I like going to like the redwoods in California. I used to live in California for a couple of years.
I wish I was.
And yeah, it's so beautiful. And you can literally just go up and touch the tree. And they talk about tree huggers.
Yeah.
And you can go sit up under some of these trees, and it's just almost overwhelming how ancient and how old these trees are. If you can look at the tree as just being another being, they are alive. We know that they have cells. We know that they absorb energy. They just do it a different way than that we do.
Yeah.
In some ways, in most ways, really. But we also absorb light energy. That's how we get our vitamin D.
Yep.
And it's just really fascinating. Yeah, that's just starting with the root chakra and just working your way. I was trying to.
That's good. I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, for sure. So that's the first. What's the next chakra? Let's move on.
So the next chakra would be your sacral chakra.
Okay.
And your sacral chakra is located just above your navel area, and it's represented by the color orange. And it deals with pleasure and guilt.
Okay.
And it's blocked by guilt and is charged with pleasure. And you can have too much guilt, but you can also have too much pleasure. And the issue with pleasure is that when people think pleasure, they instantly go to sexual pleasure. And
I went to food.
Oh, great.
I went to food because it was by the stomach. And I said, so if you have too much good food, you get a stomach ache, or, that was what I went to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you become very gluttonous if you have way too much food. And people tend to do this. We find things that releases dopamine in our brains and our minds, and we gravitate toward those more readily. This is actually one of the issues that if you read the studies with cell phones and people being attached to their cell phones on all the apps, especially the younger generation. I say younger, like I'm like that much older, but the younger generation and just being attached to their cell phones, it's because you're getting that dopamine release every 5 seconds with these super short videos.
Yep.
But once you're able to let that go, you start to embody more of the sacral energy. People also block this due to whatever guilt they have in their life. And guilt doesn't necessarily have to be something that's so major and extremely traumatic. It could be something as simple as, I wish I would have done this and my life would have been on a different path. But instead of looking at it as, I feel guilty for myself not taking this decision, just look at it more of this was a different opportunity and I'm sticking with my decision, and that's okay. Everything that we experience in life is just a part of the journey, and it's meant to teach us a lesson. Instead of getting upset about it, just try to look at what lesson was there for me to learn in this.
That's good. Okay, so that's a sacral chakra. So we got 2 down. Sure. What's the next one?
I'm trying to keep it short because it's like a bunch of them.
Good. I'd love to just touch on them all if we can, just real quick. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So the next one would be the solar plexus chakra.
Okay. Yep.
And that one's represented by yellow and is literally located in a solar plexus area.
Yep.
So the solar plexus chakra deals with willpower, and it's blocked by shame. There it is. I had to think about it. Whenever you feel ashamed about something or feel shameful, there's really anything shameful in your life, just understand that whatever occurred typically wasn't your fault. Because typically when you feel ashamed about something or shameful for something, if you feel ashamed about something particularly in your life, it's because someone else's opinion about that particular topic or is going on with you made you feel ashamed. Such as, say if something simple, say you got like a tattoo or something and your parents were very against tattoos, but you really wanted this tattoo and you started feeling slightly ashamed of it because of the outlook of your family, parents, stuff like that. Ultimately, their judgments have nothing to do with you. There's no point in feeling ashamed for just strictly because of someone else's opinions about it. And really where my mind went with it was actually more closer to like sexuality, because typically people start feeling ashamed about their sexuality and want to come out about it. And because of that, they carry this shame, this baggage with them for an extended period of time. Hopefully they get over it or learn to live with it. And it's usually because of society, it's because of their parents. And thankfully we live in a more tolerant society now, so that's not really the issue. But you have to have a certain amount of willpower and internal fortitude to come through that and burst through that. And once this happens, you're as bright as the sun, right? Because you're living within your own truth. And you no longer have to carry that anymore. So that's one way that you can.
Could it be that you are ashamed though with your actions? Like you actually think it's wrong and you like maybe you did something and you were ashamed, like you actually believe it.
So there,
Yeah,
I
both
agree
sides.
with that as well. I do think that there are sometimes like we have actions in our lives that we do feel ashamed about, and we can
Yeah.
also feel guilty because of what happened. And one way that I help people get through that is, given what occurred, I understand why you feel so ashamed about it, and I understand why you feel guilty, but it happened. And there's nothing that you can do to change the past. All you can do is reconcile with what was going on and look at your life now. Are you still that same person that did these things that you're ashamed of, that you feel guilty about? And if you are and you want to change, then let's work on that. Let's look at what does that mean to change for you? What can we do to get you there? If you were that person, you still are doing these things and you have no desire to change, I can't help you, bro. But also, why feel ashamed about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it's one thing to I'm having difficult. Say if you're an alcoholic, you know that you shouldn't be drinking as much, but you just can't stop. You have this addiction, whether it be alcohol or any other drug. You feel ashamed about it, but I really want to stop. Then that's okay. We can work through. There are ways to get through that, to get past that. But if you're constantly drinking, you recognize that you drink a lot, but you don't perceive it to be a problem, then it's not a problem for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay too.
Yeah. Okay. So the solar plexus, and then so how many do we have left? We've done 3.
We have 4 left.
4 left. Okay.
So the
what
next,
what are the remaining 4? Hit on those real quick.
Sure. So the next one is the heart chakra, located at the heart, just dealing with love and loss and grief. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Love the world, but mostly it's about loving yourself, to find that love within yourself.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we have the throat chakra.
Right. Okay.
So the throat chakra is represented by the color blue, and it is blocked by lies and deals with truth. And it's the lies that, yes, we tell others, but mostly the lies we tell ourselves. The ones that know if we're lying to ourselves or not. Nobody else is going to know that.
Yeah.
Nobody but us and God.
Yep.
So you be truthful to others, but truly be truthful to yourself. But that also means speak your truth. But one thing I want to say on that real quick is that when you're speaking your truth, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be boisterous about it either. A lot of times people are like, I'm speaking my truth, and they're like all loud and proud.
Yes.
About it. That has its time, and be humble, show some humility about it. And it's about being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we have the third eye chakra, which is my personal favorite.
Here, where they rub or touch. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's located here where the pineal gland is. So that's why we actually touch here, because your pineal gland is located in the center of your head.
Okay.
Which actually has crystals on it, similar to the crystals of our eyes. So that's where that whole third eye thing comes from.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And we could delve deeper into that maybe on another one of my favorite topics. But what that does is it's blocked by, it deals with illusions, and it's blocked by the illusion that we can't affect our own, and because we can, it's just that most people don't or aren't aware of how to do that and what that means.
Yeah.
And in truth, we're not separate. We're all truly connected. And once you learn how things are connected, you can start aligning yourself with the path. And and the path is the way that you get to where you see yourself.
Yeah.
That means for you.
Huh.
And then moving on from there, we have the crown chakra located at the top of the head, and it's represented, so it's represented really by, I read multiple things on it. Some people say violet, but usually because the rainbow and everything, but for the most part, it's really represented by white, like the color white and white energy, pure white light. And things like that. Like imagine light being passed through a prism and then breaking up into the other colors.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? So crown chakra deals with our material aspects of life. And the way that you open or feel the crown chakra is by letting go of materialism and attachment and truly being one with the divine.
Huh. And it's just interesting stuff because I think about like when you carry stress about different things, like you feel in different areas. And we've interviewed people talking about like tapping and things like that. And it really is fascinating because I truly believe God made us perfect. Like we're not perfect, but he knew what he was doing with the body. And I think there's ways like that are the connections there, I think, with what you're saying and how we can heal ourselves and help ourselves and let go of things. And it's just a really fascinating thing, and connecting it to all that. Yeah. Like I said, we could break all that down and hold different episodes because there's so much there really is. Because I truly think if we can know ourselves better, if we can listen to the silence every now and then by meditation, and if we can understand these different areas in our body and what they're telling us, I think our body's made to tell us these things. So listen to that. We could really take ourselves and those around us to different levels through that. So I think what you're doing with Chakra Wonders is really cool. And I think there's so much more to understand from it. But I think what you've shared so far in this episode has been amazing. Just the tips on meditation and then the different chakras that people might not have any clue about. Now they're more aware of the different areas that now, hey, they're starting to think about how they can improve their lives and their health and their spiritual being and their mindset and everything. So Dexter, I appreciate you being on and sharing all this with me and with the audience.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It really does. I'd like to think, and I like to try to learn new things. And so it's always an interesting topic. But before we kind of wind down and say, see you later, where can people go find you, connect with you, and connect with what you're doing with Chakra Wonders?
For sure. So I have my website, chakrawonders.com. If you go on there and click the books tab, there's actually a free ebook for the first 25 pages of my shadow work book to help get you started with delving into your inner child. But also social media. I have my Facebook page, my Instagram. I'm on TikTok, and my TikTok talks about a lot of positivity affirmations, and it's really cool. People seem like they like it.
More positivity, so I think that would be a hit for sure then. So cool. Yeah, everyone, make sure you get connected with Dexter and what he's doing. And he's got big goals to make a big difference on the world. He's really elevating himself and the people around him through Chakra Wonders. So he's doing good. And yeah, just continue to learn. And so again, Dexter, thanks so much for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Hopefully we get a chance to talk again.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching this and someone who's just struggling maybe, or just trying to figure things out, or stressed even, share this with them. It could be a benefit to them and help them elevate their lives. So we can do more together. So go ahead, share this episode, and if you're listening to this, implement some of this, take action, elevate your own life, elevate your own position, elevate your business and your family through just relieving some of the stress and understanding why you do the things you do through meditation. But until next time, go out, make a difference in the world, and we'll talk to you later. And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well.